round. So a 6, a 12, and a 1 round to work on this. And I'll show you here. I have my colors. I have my indigo. I have my Prussian blue. And I have my black over here. And we're just going to work from the wells. We're going to use very wet on wet technique. I just love this. So let's get started. I'm going to just use my number 12 and we'll start here, or no, we'll start this side and then work over. So I'm just going to get in here. I'm just going to get in here and I'm going to wet this paper. And I am using Arches 140-pound watercolor paper tonight. Actually, my first time using this paper for the butterfly here. So we're going to be surprised together how this turns out. So I'm just taking that brush and working that water through, and I'm not too worried about my pencil lines. Now down below in the description box, you will find out where you can go to get a copy of this tracer so that you can do this exact same butterfly. I want to just show you real quick before we go on to paper. I'm going to use some of this Prussian blue and just get it nice and saturated. And I'm just going to pull some over here into the well. Okay, and we're going to get that pigment nice and wet and just make sure we have enough to cover our wings, and that should be fine. So for this part, we're just going to use the Prussian blue. I'm just going to try to pull off some of that color. Since our paper is already wet, it should take nicely. So I'm just going to take that Prussian blue and just start dropping that into these sections of the wing. It is going to spread, and that's going to be fine. When we go in to put our details in a few minutes, you will see that it is all going to just blend nicely together. So our wet paper, and we're just covering almost that whole wing except for the outer edges with that Prussian blue. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and just do this bottom wing in the same way. I'm just not using clear water. I'm using that same brush with just a little bit of water on it. A little bit of just fresh water. I just dipped my brush right into it to get that color, and we're going to just pull it down here onto the bottom part of the butterfly, almost out to the edges. I mean, you can go all the way out if you want, but we'll just work on this one side first. Now, I am going to pull my palette back in so that you can see what I'm going to do. I'm going to take some of this blue and bring it over here into the other well, into my black. Okay, and we can also get into that indigo, and we'll put some of that over here as well. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous color. So I'm just still using my 12. If you feel more comfortable using the smaller brush at this point, you can switch over. So I'm just going to take the tip of my brush and start going around the outer part of that butterfly wing. And I am just following the outline of the wing, and I'm just kind of gently tapping the color around that edge of the wing. And you'll see here where the wet paint, where the two colors of wet paint meet, they will just start blending out into each other. So I'm just tapping that darker color. I can just start pulling it up through like the reference photo, up into the wing, in certain spots and areas. Like this part is just more saturated with that indigo, so we'll pull that up through. You really can't go wrong. I'm going to pull this all the way down the edge of this butterfly wing. And the paper, believe it or not, is already drying quickly. So you'll see less spread. You just want to kind of try to work quickly. And I'm just going to drop some of that indigo in around all of this veining. I have not picked up any more paint at this point. I'm just pulling some of that indigo up along those veining lines, because I want that to just softly blend out into the paper. But again, I have not picked up any more paint at this point. I'm just pulling that up softly. And see how it is just softly blending. This part here is already wet. Dry, believe it or not. So I can tap in some more indigo. Now down here in this part of the wing, I'm going to work down here more because I want this to kind of dry a little bit. So this bottom part of the wing, it's more, we're going to keep that bright blue right here in the center, and we're going to work the indigo around the edge. So we're going to use the belly of the brush and just kind of softly bring that indigo in. And you'll see how the color is starting to fade a little bit because my brush or the paper is already drying. So I'm just going to dip my brush in and pick up a little bit of water. It might have been a little too much water, but it's okay. We're going to go back in and deepen up this blue as well. We're just going to keep working that blue around the edge of the butterfly wing. I can come back in. Let's see if I can put this over here. Nope, it's not going to let me. So let me see. I'm just going to pull. I dipped back into my indigo, and I'm just coming around the edge of that wing. I'm just going to try to keep that edge a little bit sharper and pull around indigo. Okay, and then I'm going to kind of continue that line up where the two butterfly wings kind of overlap. Now I am just going to clean my brush at this point completely of all paint. I'm just going to pick up a tiny little bit of fresh water, and I'm going to dip into the blue that we first started with. I'm going to get those two colors to blend nicely together. And come up and add areas where you want the blue to be a little bit brighter in between the veining. I'm just going to keep working now, because see, this one is really dark and I want to mimic that down below. I am going to switch to a smaller brush at this second time. And I want to make sure my paper is nice and wet there. I'm going to dip into a little bit of my black. I'm just going to dip and tap some of my black right here around the edge of the wing. I'm just going to let it do what watercolor likes to do and just blend. Might be a little bit too much water. So I'm just going to dry that a little bit on my paper towel, and I'll just drop some more color. Just going to let that kind of tap it. Bring it up into some of that veining that we see that's in there. Veining kind of connects to these outer dips of the wing. Let's see, we'll just go in. Where your paper is still really wet, you're going to see that bursting out of the color. But I really love the wet on wet technique. It's just giving me a really pretty soft. See, this one is already starting to dry. And I'm going to leave this one be for a little bit right now. Actually, I'm going to come back up top here and add just a little bit of black right around the edges. And I'm just kind of going around the edges and tapping some of that black in. I can kind of bring that up into some of the veining. Smaller brush at this second time. And I want to make sure my paper is nice and wet there. I'm going to dip into a little bit of my black. I'm just going to dip and tap some of my black right here around the edge of the wing. I'm just going to let it do what watercolor likes to do and just blend. Might be a little bit too much water. So I'm just going to dry that a little bit on my paper towel, and I'll just drop some more color. Just going to let that kind of tap it, bring it up into some of that veining that we see that's in there. Veining kind of connects to these outer dips of the wing. Let's see, we'll just go in. Where your paper is still really wet, you're going to see that bursting out of the color. But I really love the wet on wet technique. It's just giving me a really pretty soft. See, this one is already starting to dry. And I'm going to leave this one be for a little bit right now. Actually, I'm going to come back up top here and add just a little bit of black right around the edges. And I'm just kind of going around the edges and tapping some of that black in. I can kind of bring that up into some of the veining. That's pretty much dry there, so we're just going to, but don't get too stressed. I mean, we are going to add some metallic to this as well. I'm just going to go over that little spot here where it kind of bumps up and out and around. It's almost like a little heart. Just don't stress. No two butterflies are the same. Don't be stressed if yours doesn't look like mine. It's all going to work out just perfectly fine. Okay. So we're going to just work just some more of that really dark, beautiful color We can come over the veining again and deepen that. See, this bottom wing is doing exactly what I wanted it to do. You can see the veining in there. Okay, so we're gonna go over here. I'm gonna clean off my brush again completely. Both brushes. I'm gonna grab the big brush. We're gonna work up here first. So, fresh water, fresh plain old water, just a quick, not like that might be too much. Just wet your paper. It does not have to be soaking, sopping wet. And okay, so that upper wing is all wet. I'm going to come in to that Prussian blue with some water, and I am just going to fill from the inner part of the wing, and we're just going to fill that in all the way out, almost to the edge. Right, so I got some really deep, beautiful Prussian blue there, and I'm just tapping that on, pulling it out to the edge. Leaving a little bit of that. You can come over here and lay in some more color if you want to deepen those wings. The side is already dry, believe it or not. All right, so this is still nice and wet. I can bring in some more of that deep color. This is just the Prussian blue, a little bit more paint on my brush. So now I'm going to take that brush into my indigo with a little bit of black, and just the tip. Remember, just the tip. Now we're going to work that outer wing of the butterfly and pull it into the Prussian blue. Want a good bit of that wing Prussian blue. And we're going to pull it right down the top of that wing. Pick up more paint if you need it. Pull that into the wing so that the two colors meet. I'm just going to keep going here. And remember where those veins of the butterfly are. Okay. I'm going to go right under this vein here with the tip and a little bit of the belly of my brush. And then I'm going to pull some of that color. I have less and less paint on the brush. I'm just going to lightly pull through the veins, lightly at this point. You can add some more. You can pick up some black and deepen that color. See how pretty that is? Really, I mean, it's only two colors, and we're just playing with the water. That veining. Then when this dries, we can come in and make the lines even more deep. Okay, so I don't like the way this is blending. So I'm just going to come in with some water, and I'm just going to soften just very lightly. You don't want to work too hard and pull too much on your paper. but I'm just adding some water to soften that shading a little bit. Okay, I'm really liking the look of that. So we're going to come down here, water. I do have some Prussian blue on my brush. I'm just going to pick up a little bit more, and we're just going to work from the inner corner, and we're going to pull that out. That's a little bit bright, so I can soften that with a little bit of water on my brush. See how that just kind of softens and lightens that color. Just want to work fairly quickly, because even though your paper looks wet, it will dry quickly, and then, you know, you'll get some of these speckled spots that you might not be thrilled with your result. But I'm just going to drop some of this deep, beautiful color in. Now we're going to switch back over to our indigo mixed with some black. And I'm going to do the same here. I'm going to go around my bottom edges. I'm kind of just tapping and pulling the brush. See how that color just starts to work its way up into the butterfly wing. And that is the thing about watercolor that really just gets me so excited. I love to see this. I love it. And I'm just tapping that dark color in around the edges of the wing, just like we did over here. I want that, just like you can see on the reference photo, I want that darkness right around the edges. So I'm picking up black on my brush right now, more black, pulling up just a little bit of the indigo, and I'm just tapping that beautiful color in. Okay, and see how it's a little splotchy there? It's all going to work out just fine, honestly. We're going to let that dry a little bit. Can come in around the edge. Straighten up. Clean up some of my lines. I can do the same over here. So just filling that in with some really deep, rich color. I'm just going to pick up some water on my brush, a little bit more water, and I'm going to glaze. I'm going to go right over these edges of this wing with that color, and that's glazing that color on top of a color that's already there. So I'm going to get all of the color out of my brush, pretty much, and just have fresh water again. Just going to tap some fresh water there. I just want that to blend in a little bit better. And just go around with the water, and you can hit certain spots. Right, but that side, this side is pretty much dry. This one is not, because we just re-wet it, but we're going to let it dry. And remember, watercolor dries a little bit lighter than what it looks like when you first put it on the paper. It lightens up a bit. Now with the very tip of my brush, I just want to get a hint of where my veining is. I don't have a lot of water on the brush. I do not have a lot of paint on the brush at this time. But I just want a hint of where that veining was again. Okay. And we are going to let that completely dry just for a minute, and then we're going to come back in and finish it up. All right, so my butterfly is nice and dry right now. I mean, I think it looks pretty darn good. I just pulled out our metallic, which is the Kuretake Gold, and I'm just going to add a little bit of water to it so it can activate, because we are going to finish this one up with some gorgeous metallic line work. So before we do that, we're going to work in the inside, and I'm just going to use my smaller brush. Probably, let's see, we'll use the 6, and I'm just going to work some black. So I'm just going to pick up some black right straight onto my brush. And I'm just going to fill in. I'm going to fill the whole thing in with black. So we're not going to work on any shading of the actual body. We're going to add that with our metallic. So let's see here. We are just going to fill in the body of the butterfly. Probably could have gotten away with the bigger brush, but this will work. So I'm just going to fill in the body. It's way too much water. Oy, so we'll pull some of that off. Get some more black. We're just going to fill in the body of the butterfly with the black. It's a nice little point there. I'm going to let that dry, but I am going to just pull in some nice long little antenna and just tap. Do the same over on this side and just tap there. The butterfly needs his antenna. We're going to let that dry. I'm going to pick up my number 1 brush here. I'm just using a Princeton watercolor brush. It's a number 1 round. It has a nice little point on it. And I want to make sure that my gold is nice and activated. I don't know if you can see that or not, but it is nice and activated. The pigment is nice and ready to go. So let's work on this side of the wing first. So basically all I'm going to do is I'm going to just follow some of that veining with the watercolor. I'm just going to outline some of the veining of the butterfly very lightly, just with the tip of the brush. Just going to pull very lightly with it, pull some of that veining out. And I can add a few taps of that just around the edges as well. I'm just going to keep doing that. And don't stress about having really solid vein lines. I just think it looks better when it's kind of skips a little and maybe a little bit blotchy. Some you can pull all the way through. But you can see where we made the, where we put that soft shadow and it kind of bleeds where the darkness bled out. You know, it just shaded, it just completely blended itself up and out into the butterfly wing. And that way now when we come in with this gold, let me pull that over here. We can see that shading underneath of the gold, right? So we're just going to do that. Pull some carefully down. Here. Brush is a little bit dry. I'm just sort of outlining the wing, but not so much that it's just a perfectly outlined line. I'm just going to wet my brush a little bit more, get some of this pigment. I'm going to just thicken the bottom of this wing a little bit more. Then we're just going to really, really lightly pull the veining in. Just a light touch will do. Okay. You can add some around the edges, just like we did up there. Okay. And then we are going to come to the other side of this wing and we're going to do the same thing. So just very lightly with a light hand, just do the same thing on this wing. Okay, so when you've got that all done, we're then going to come in to the body of the butterfly, and just in this center circle, We're going to make a smaller circle here to highlight the body. And then we're going to just do small little lines. You can curve them slightly if you want. And we're just going to evenly space some lines right down the body of the butterfly. We can outline a little bit there. Maybe tap a little bit up here where the eyes would be. You can go back and add some more gold to places where you just think you might want to make it pop a little bit. And otherwise, then now we have our beautiful, beautiful blue butterfly with the golden metallic accents. Absolutely beautiful. I hope you like this. If you do, please like and follow. Follow us on YouTube. We are on all social. Everything is linked below. And again, all of the supplies that I've used will also be linked below in our Amazon affiliate storefront. I thank you for painting with me, and I look forward to painting so many more things with you in the coming days and weeks. Thank you guys. Bye.